going on, guys? Thanks for tuning into this episode of Phil Talk Sports Podcast, where we talk about the latest and greatest in the world of sports, and more recently, reviewing sports movies and TV shows. Welcome to part 2 of the Friday Night Lights review, seasons 4 and 5. I'm joined by the coach, Luke Schulz, with me again. What's going on, man?
It's been a busy day.
Yes, it has, and we just spent way too long getting the audio right on this, so I hope it sounds all right, because it was a major user error on my part, but at least we figured it out.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad it's coming across clean.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen the last episode, I would definitely go back and watch it because this won't make a whole lot of sense. We are reviewing the popular TV show, Friday Night Lights. You'll also get my short opinions of the movie Friday Night Lights in the first part. We reviewed seasons 1, 2, and 3, and we left off with Coach Eric Taylor having to leave Dillion High due to booster issues and moving over to the recently reopened East Dillion High, a place that has not been open for several years in the poorer part of town. And he has to basically build an entire football program up from scratch. He goes from winning state, getting back to state 2 years later, basically a perennial playoff contender every single year, to literally from ground zero is where we start with season 4.
To the point where they have no equipment, no players. They even say, we don't play football here.
Can't even get in the locker room.
Right.
So it really starts out with kind of open tryouts, I guess you could say, and you get a lot of just kids in the neighborhood, a lot of, with the school being reopened, there is rezoning, as there would be. So kids that were previously going to regular Dillion High are now zoned for East Dillion, including, but not limited to, Landry Clark, the best friend of course, former quarterback Matt Saracen. He has now graduated. He's trying to work his way into the art industry. He's always been, in the first couple seasons, he's always drawing and doing other things. He takes an internship with this crazy artist. I think this is around this time.
I forgot about that.
Total whack job guy.
I'm glad he was short-lived.
Yeah,
because he just did not fit the entire flow of the show.
Right.
But yeah, he's off in Chicago, and then Landry. I always thought they were the same age. And then you find out Landry was a year younger because Matt's graduated and then Landry is still in school.
Yeah, and you would think because Landry's clearly the smartest, so it's not like
Right.
he was left back or anything.
Exactly, yeah.
We have a six-pack with us again, by the way, in case anyone was wondering. Time for another one.
But yeah, he kind of steps up and takes over. He takes a bigger role in the show.
Yeah, because prior to this, his biggest role was when he killed a guy, which we somehow forgot to mention.
There's a few things we missed in seasons 1 through 3.
To be fair, that's a lot of stuff to cover in one scene.
And plus, it's been a while since we watched those seasons, but I think we did cover a decent amount of ground. But yeah, Landry killed a guy.
He killed a guy in self-defense, though. So what happens is Tyra, who we kind of mentioned, we see her rise to like someone with no future to, someone who's going to go on to be a college student and hopefully make something of herself. She is actually waiting at a restaurant during a football game, so there's nothing else going on in town, and Landry's supposed to tutor her in math, I believe it is, and his car breaks down and he doesn't get there, so she eventually gives up and tries to go home, and this creepy dude that's been at the diner the whole time looking at her follows her out and tries to assault her, and he gets there right around the same time, like right after it happens, I guess, and a couple weeks later, he gets there like right after it happens or something, and he finds the guy. He ends up like basically grabbing a rock, and he only hits him, I think, once, but apparently kills him.
Well, the dude has been kind of like Landry and her were hanging out a lot as best friends and whatnot.
It started with the tutoring thing.
Yeah, and
because he had no chance otherwise.
The dude kept showing up and passing by, and she would notice, but she didn't really say anything to Landry. And when he hits him with a rock, he hits him in the back of the head.
Yes.
And that's kind of important because it's also if he gets caught or CSI gets involved or anything like that. I mean, it's very clear to see, okay, the guy got hit in the back of the head. So
something, yeah.
Right. So it's not just it's harder to prove self-defense. If the person's walking away and they get hit in the back of the head, how can you say that's self-defense?
Right.
So they go dump him in a river.
His dad, who's the sheriff, or he's either a sheriff or at least a regular cop. I think he's fairly higher up.
He's higher up.
He's not just like your normal.
He's clearly been there for a while.
Yeah.
And he is identical to Landry. He just looks like Landry. Whoever they used for the casting of that role was a perfect fit for him. And he's been there for a while. But, yeah, he ends up finding the body, right? Or it gets reported and he goes down to the
because they dump it in the river.
Yeah, and then it shows up way down the way a bit.
So they torch Landry's car. He has like the old school like station wagon in the first couple seasons.
Yeah, because he finds he says there's DNA and like blood in the fibers of the car and all that. So they torch it together, and he never mentions it again.
Just good old fashioned father son bonding.
That really was. It was good
getting
bonding.
rid of a body, torching a station wagon. But you mentioned about how like it wouldn't necessarily look like self-defense, but he kind of like the guy's on Tyra and he tries to stop it and he kind of gets like elbowed to the ground and then he gets up, grabs the rock. So it's like it was self-defense.
Well, the
but
guy
it would be
starts
hard
walking away, but he says he's coming back and it's going to be worse next time and all that. So it's, I mean, they're also under threat, which, you know, could be a case, but again, the evidence is kind of against Landry at that point. And he goes to turn himself in at one point.
Yeah, which the cop, his dad basically tells him, it's like, you can be here to tell him about, you know, him attacking Tyra and everything, but like leave it at that, because that's really the main thing here. A guy that was attacking women, we no longer have to worry about. Which, I mean, some people are more humane than others, but like I'm good with that. Like if a rapist gets hit with a rock while he's raping somebody, like
he's proven that that we don't want to get too political.
No, but I think you know, like,
but he's proven that he's not fit for life.
Right.
Way, you know, like
and
especially if he's going to be terrorizing other people.
And at no point do you look at Landry. You don't look at him any different for that. Like we mentioned, like for much different thing.
He's a decent kid overall.
Right. Like we mentioned with much different scenario, but like when Tim Riggin starts the thing with Lila, for at least a little while, you look at him differently. You know,
both of them.
Yeah. And then like when Smash does steroids, you look at him at least a little differently. You know why he's doing it, but you're like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Like,
well, you see the motivation behind it before you see him doing it.
Yes.
You know, it's one of the, like with Tim and Lila, they kind of jumped into that. You didn't really get to see the characters before that. Not too much. You got to see a little bit of bonding at like the fire and all that between the three of them.
Texas Forever. Great scene.
But it just, you didn't get enough time to really like feel sympathy for kind of how they got there.
Yeah.
And
whereas Landry at this point, he's one of the more likable. I said in the first episode of this, one of the more self-aware people too. Like he knows what he is, he knows what he isn't. Him and Tyra, you know, when they hook up the first time, she wakes up and she goes to say something. He's like, just don't say anything that'll ruin the best night of my life.
Yeah.
You know, if you need to go, fine, but just leave it at that. She literally just gets up and climbs out his window and leaves. So
he's one of the funnier characters in the show. And as she's getting out and leaving, maybe not the first time, maybe the second or third time, his dad is out there like taking out the trash and sees her climbing out the window, and he's like, just kind of like, "What's going on?"
Yeah, because again, talk about self-aware. He's like, "There's no way my son's pulling a girl like that."
Right.
Like at no point was he like, "That's my boy." He knows like, no, something's up here, which was very, like you said, self-awareness must run in this family, because he at no point was he like, he was immediately into like, wait a minute,
it's like, are you paying her?
Right. What's going on here? So we say all that because that was a pretty big plot hole. That's probably the biggest thing we forgot to mention. There's probably a few other little things, but he does get repositioned over to East Dillion, and really for the first half of this episode, Coach is like, oh, at least I know somebody here, like that can help me, like rally kids and get them to, get them to the tryout. And these kids, like, not only do they not listen by like for coaching, they don't listen and like go stand in a line to run sprints. Like they don't even.
They don't like being told what to do.
Right.
And that's Landry is kind of a leader of the team in the beginning.
By default.
He's relying on Landry to help kind of set the expectations. Mm-hmm. But one thing we did kind of gloss over a little bit, I know he becomes the villain in this season, but how Eric Taylor got there was because of, the introduction of J.D. McCoy and his father, who kind of took over as one of the big name boosters, pushing Buddy Garrity out.
While simultaneously his son being like a new age quarterback, Matt Saracen was essentially, he did what was needed to be done. Whereas JD McCoy is one of these kids that goes to like passing camps, plays 7-on-7.
He's been around. He's been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things is he threatens, I mean, not like himself, but he is a threat to Matt Saracen still being number one back when he's still on the team because of things like he can pass much better than Matt.
Yeah.
That was one thing they talked about. He can launch it down the
bigger
field.
arm, deeper arm, more accurate arm.
And he's younger. He's 2 years younger than him. And
I don't know if the youth thing, I mean, it helps that like, okay, if we get this guy good, he has like 3 years in
he's
this
got
system.
some extra experience.
But I don't know that youth comes into it as much in high school because everybody's young.
Right, but they can get more longevity.
They'll get 3 years of that out of him. Yeah.
Right.
But so in season 3, there's a lot of JD back and forth. Really, the biggest thing with like, yeah, Matt might not be a better athlete, but he deals with adversity more. Like the first 2 games or so that JD, like things aren't going great.
He starts blaming everyone around him.
People are getting to him. People are hitting him, knocking him down.
Why aren't you blocking for me? You know, and
he's literally walking around just like throwing his helmet and shit, like
he's
NFL level. Yeah, he's definitely.
He gets it from his dad and his mom. You know, actually, his mom was pretty good. Now I think about it.
Yeah, she was
fine, but you didn't realize it at first because you thought, okay, it's a whole family issue
of rich people. Yeah,
right. They're an elite class, but no, it's the dad.
And
you know, he's the stem of all the problems.
I didn't write a whole nowhere near as much down for this episode as I did the first one, but up until the split with the East Dillion and them getting there, for any reason did you think of Dillion as like a rich town or even with a rich section?
No, because they even cover during some of the earlier episodes when like Taylor goes over to visit Smash, you know, and that's kind of a rougher side of the town. I mean, it's not completely poverty stricken. It's much worse in seasons 4 and 5, like in Vince Howard's area,
which you didn't know existed.
Right, exactly. But like they kind of touch on it a little bit when he goes to visit Smash, and you know, it's still a nice neighborhood.
Yeah, it's
like
apartment,
nice
apartment complexes. It's, you know, older houses like where Matt or like Landry would live.
They're working hard to get by.
I would say it's working class, middle class families. I never. Who's in the first three seasons? Who's the richest? Like Coach Taylor, probably one of the bigger money makers in that town. Just a normal size house.
Yeah.
No pool,
you're talking about like the generic player. Oh yeah. Like even like, Jason, Tim, they're all kind of.
The streets seem a little bit more well-to-do. The dad owns a pharmacy, it appears. Like you really. Yeah. So they might be the highest class people, and they're still just normal house, normal this.
Yeah. Exactly.
So really, I think it's him coming in saying we're gonna make this about the higher class thing.
Oh yeah, he's an elitist.
Yes.
You know, I mean. There's class issues all over America, and that's the thing is it was relative.
Yes.
It's still or not relative, relevant.
Yes,
it's still relevant to the times because
this would have been
there's always class issues.
2008, I guess, when this season would have been airing,
and he's still doing fine despite the stock market crash and all
that,
you know. And
it's one of those things. They never really say what he does or anything. He's just like
they might have, but I don't think I can remember.
I'm rich for a living. Like, you know, they don't really specify too much.
It's like old money. It might have been.
Yeah, that's, you know,
feels
oil money. It is Texas after all.
It's kind of passed through the family. But the thing is, Buddy Garrity, I think
he's probably the richest because he's open.
Well, he works for. Yeah, he's an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
you know. But the thing is, like, he is a diehard Panther. He was a Panther. He went to college. He came back. He was a booster for years and years and years, and he's been helping the team out. And the town, like him building these businesses, He helps out the community.
He employs former like he's weird.
He employed Jason for a while.
He employed his dad, who in quote says, Matt's dad, where he says he has him selling cars, and he says, and I quote, "That guy cannot sell a flotation device to a drowning man," but he still gives him a try.
Right, and then this guy comes out of nowhere and kind of takes his spot. He was not a Panther. He wasn't even from the state, I believe.
I mean, Texas is big. That could have just been another part, but like,
but he's definitely not from Dillon. Is my point. You know, like, he's got no history there, and he comes in and just kind of shoulders his way through, and he's like, "Oh, you know, I'm gonna go and just take over." Buddy takes it hard.
Yeah, because he actually says it starts out with him going, "I could have moved my family to any place in the country. I moved him here because I wanted him to play for you, Coach Taylor. I respect you that much." So originally, you're like, "All right, at least there's like a reason, a method of madness for a little while." You think you're like, "All right, I'll give him," and you're like, "Nope, total dick."
He starts out kind of kissing his ass a little bit, and I think Taylor's very wary of it. Yeah, he's like, "Look, I just want to coach. You know, just let like I need your son to do what I ask him to do. You know, like we're gonna try to be as successful as we can for the team, not so that way your son can make a name just for himself. Yeah, you got to put the team above.
He's really the first bad sports dad in this show. Like you think it would come sooner, like 3 seasons in, but
it's true because they're so community driven. Like you know, Smash's mom.
They're all about the team.
She went to every single game and all that. You know, and she never. The only time she ever interfered was when she thought that Taylor knew about the steroids
and he did.
Otherwise, she stayed out of his way. You know, let the coach.
Yeah.
But he's the only one who. He was constantly at practice, like he's got nothing else better to do. Again, old money because he clearly doesn't have a job.
Clearly doesn't work. Like, if he does, he's like
you know,
stock trading at home. You know,
right?
But like
he's there at every single practice. Yeah. He's trying to coach JD McCoy off to the side, and all of this is building up. And by the end of season 3, it fucking explodes. You know, and that's why, you know, that's part of the reason Coach ends up getting uprooted and moved over to East Dillion.
Right. And so they're having that first mess of a practice, and police car pulls up, and the police officer gets out, goes over to the coach, and Coach Taylor, and he doesn't know the officer specifically, but apparently he coached his older brother. They have a quick conversation, like, "Oh, how's he doing? Good. I think he just says, like, he's at State now, like, basically saying he went on to college." Yeah. And he's like, "So I got this kid that could really use some discipline. He's zoned for your area. He goes to this school, but he never goes to school. And I feel like if we don't do something with him, like the next time I have to pick him up, he's going to juvie."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, if you want to bring him by practice," he's like, "I actually got him with me." And he gets him out of the car. Back in the car. And he gets out of the car, and it is a young, baby-faced Michael B. Jordan.
Arguably the guy who went off to do the most, I'd say.
Oh, easily.
Even over Kyle Chandler. But yeah, he definitely is the most successful actor out of the entire show.
And I don't know if he did something before this, but it is the first time I've seen him. Like, right, it's the earliest work I've seen.
Yeah, exactly. Earliest. I think the first thing I ever saw him in was Chronicle, and then when you gave me that set, everything, I saw his picture, I was like, no fucking way. Yeah. Michael B. Jordan's in this?
Yeah. So Chronicle, I think it came out after.
It came out after.
But his first thing,
like you said, earliest work that we know.
So he's Vince Howard in this, which great football name, I think. I like there's not many name choices in this show that I would change, and he's just the perfect. He makes me think of Vince Young, and then obviously it's basketball, but it's like Vince Young, Dwight Howard mixed together, and I'm like, oh, it's just a perfect football name.
It is a good name. I never thought about that.
So he has him come to practice, and he goes, what do you like to do? Because I guess he caught him stealing, and he had to track him down or something. He goes,
it does show one scene of them chasing him down and picking him up, but that's it. That's the only.
But you don't know who he is yet,
right? Exactly.
So he goes, "Son, tell me about yourself. What do you like to do?" And he goes, "I like to run." And the cop is like, yeah, he does. And so they instinctively, someone says you like to run. What do? You put him at running back. So they have him running some stuff. Him and he talks his buddy Calvin Brown into trying out, I guess, or coming to the practices, because I don't even know if it's a tryout at this point. It's more like, can I even form a team to run a practice?
Right.
So
it's a lot
Calvin,
of physical conditioning in the beginning, because a lot of them are just not used to.
Kids that maybe play in the backyard, but probably have never played organized football outside of Pop Warner at this point.
Yeah.
So the Calvin kid, he has these no-name assistant coaches. You haven't heard. You eventually learn some of their names, but at this point you don't know anybody. And the coach has the ball in his hand in their huddle, and Calvin grabs it, and he goes, "All right, man, I'm just playing." He goes to throw it back to him, and he hits the coach in the nose, and apparently breaks his nose. And the coach just goes, "I'm out of here. I'm done." And so the first practice or so does not go well. Really, the only person that's helping him in any capacity is Landry, as we just said. He's kind of the de facto. He's the leader. One, he's a good kid, and coach knows that. Doesn't know his name, but he knows he's a good kid. But he can trust him. He knows him. He went to State with him.
I mean, some of these kids, they're being so defiant and so uncoachable. They're even having problems getting on the weight scale and whatnot. Where they're sitting there talking back to the coaches during such a simple process.
It's actually such a great, because they ask you, say your name and your position, and every kid says quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
Even the kid, you learn his name is Dallas Tinker. He's a 300-pound high school kid that's obviously going to play defensive tackle. And he steps on it, he's quarterback. And they're like, oh, we got another quarterback here. And they start, at this point, they have to laugh, because literally quarterback, I'm a quarterback. And all this kid, 5'2" people and 6' kid, they're all quarterbacks apparently. But yeah, so that is a very funny bit to that. They around the same time, you're seeing the mess of a practice, if you can call it that, the coach is running, and you cut to Dillion, which is now referred to as West Dillion because obvious reasons. It does take me a while to I never refer to them as West Dillion.
Yeah, I don't think I ever got around to it, and sometimes I'm like, "Where's that?"
Yeah,
West Dillion. Is that a new school?
I don't think they changed the name. I think it's more the team has to be called that. So after that disaster of a practice that we see from East Dillion, we cut over to West Dillion. You got JD's dad, who's all high and mighty with his glasses and his hat, and he's looking over his new kingdom. You can tell they got new facilities because of his money and everything. JD's doing his thing. I think at this point, Mac is finally the head coach at this point because they had to get somebody else out. They had to get coach out. And which is interesting. We'll take a quick side note here. Most people thought would be the new coach before they picked Eric Taylor, and that's a little bit of a clash between them. And he eventually admits down the line, he's like, maybe I'm still having a problem with someone 20 years my junior being in the chair I thought would be mine someday. So there's a small, because you have no problems with Mac at this point. So you're at least happy, like, all right, I guess if someone has to coach the Panthers and it's not Coach Taylor, at least Mac's getting a shot.
But you can tell JD's dad is still kind of running the show. He's calling the shots, and I think that Mac's kind of under his thumb a little bit.
That's true. But he's so happy to get his shot that he's almost ignoring that. Yeah. So you cut to, again, the practice is going on. You got JD doing his thing, and you meet a new character, Luke Cafferty. He's the new running back. He's a running back, not a fullback, but he's like the new Tim Riggins. He's definitely more of a power back. He's running through people, not around people. He's wearing jersey number 4, which does become important later on. Mrs. Taylor, who is still I think at this point, the principal of Dillion.
Yeah, she went from being a volunteer to a guidance counselor to a principal.
Talk about a glow up.
Yeah.
Big moves. So she ends up finding out through an anonymous source named Buddy Garrity that Luke is actually stationed for East Dillion, and they put his address at this mailbox in the middle of a lot that's on the West Dillion side. So he calls Coach Taylor and says, hey, man, they got this great running back, and he's zoned for you. And Mrs. Taylor's like, how do we even know about this, that this whole mailbox thing is real? And Coach Taylor, he's like, well, I helped put that mailbox in like 5 years ago. So it is a high school football. It's not really like this anymore. You can kind of go wherever you decide to go, but zoning used to be a big deal. Like we have that here in Volusia County. It's the same. Mainland, not to like put them out there, but like they would do the same thing. If someone was zoned for Atlantic, they would put their grandma's address that lived in Daytona, and they could play in Atlanta. That's how Mainland kind of built up the thing. It doesn't matter now because you can go wherever you want, but that was definitely a thing back in the day.
Yeah, you have to apply for a variance, but it's much easier.
Much easier than it used to be.
Yeah,
before you had to just flat out lie.
Exactly. Yeah. So nowadays they're given the freedom to the parents to choose where their kid goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, he goes. There's just an empty lot there, and they've been doing this for a long time.
And Miss Taylor goes out to practice and says to Luke, like, hey, where do you live? And he rattles off the fake address. Like he pauses for like half a second, but then he says it, and she goes, I think you actually live at, and it's wherever their farm is out in the country part of the town. And again, when you meet him, you're like, oh, here's another one of JD's guys or whatever. But he immediately breaks down, almost tears, saying like, I'm sorry I lied. I'll get an A in every class. Just let me play here. And she's like, it's not up to that. It's nothing to, I don't doubt that you'll get an A in every class.
Her hands are tied, though.
Yeah.
It's how it is. It's the law.
And when she goes to walk away, he goes, and to me, this is the first moment you realize his character. He runs back over to her and says, I am sorry that I lied to you, and I will work as hard as I can over you still and to prove to you that this isn't who I am, or something to that effect. So it's like, wow. Like, because, again, why wouldn't you want to be a Panther if you live anywhere near Dillion? So, like, I understand that. So he goes over to East in their next practice or whatever. And I do think that whole Calvin thing, throwing the football, it was right around there. He kicks him out of practice, and he's kind of like off the team before anything
Calvin
gets
doesn't
going.
last long.
No.
He's way too unruly,
right,
to be coached.
So he gets kicked out, and then Luke comes in. Luke Cafferty comes in. So now you have like two people that even give a shit what's going on. You got Landry, you got Luke, and Luke basically very early on, I think he has to be the quarterback at this point because Vince is the running back. They think this is how this needs to go. And Vince is like, he has no discipline. Sure, he's fast and everything. They have to play their first game against it's either Kingville or Kingston, one of the two, but it's got King in the name. I know that for a fact. And the long short of it, they get maybe one chance to score in the first half at all. And all Vince has to do is like get in the way of the final guy, and he kind of just doesn't bother blocking. And Luke gets creamed or whatever. And they actually have to forfeit their first game at halftime.
Yeah, they go in for halftime, and coaches now they've been actually trying like as hard as they can. You can
but they have no way of knowing how this goes yet.
Right, but the thing is, they are brutally like beaten up. They're they're in there. A lot of them are bleeding, and it's not just regular cuts or anything like that. Like they're out of it. And I wasn't sure, when he goes out and he forfeits, I think he did it more so to protect them.
Yeah.
I don't think he was giving up on them. No,
that's how they took that.
That's how they took it. They, you gave up on us. We were ready to go for more and all that. But seeing the state of how they were in the locker room, I really don't blame them for doing that. I mean, this is their first game. they're still very new. They started so late that I think they only had like 1 or 2 weeks of practice in,
and they don't even have like their practice jerseys are their game jerseys at this point.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't blame him he was protecting them, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. I think maybe had he mentioned it to them, like, hey guys, like, let's live to fight another day, like, it might have worked out. But the fact that he just went out and did it,
without consulting them.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Dylan took their losses and all that, but he never saw them beat up to that extent.
Exactly.
And when he went in and he saw they were trying the entire first half, they were really putting forth all they had, and they were just getting their asses handed to them.
Yeah.
I think he took on a sympathetic approach.
Definitely. So while that is probably the reason he did what he did, that's not how the team kind of saw it. So he loses whatever rapport he has with them immediately. Like the next week at school, he says, hey, Landry, I need to get a surprise practice together, blah, blah, blah. And he's not here. And he basically he tells him to go to hell without telling him to go to hell.
He lost his right-hand man.
Yes, he did. And he's, and then literally he still calls to practice. And the only guy that shows up is Luke Cafferty, the only person that shows up. And I think at one point even asked, he's like, so if this program closes, like, do I go get to play at Dillon? Because, like, there are actually instances in small enough towns that they're like you can play for the town over if they don't have the sport you're in. It's kind of old now because everyone plays everything now, but like so he's having these thoughts while he's there, and eventually Landry apparently comes around and he does get everybody out to the thing, and the coach apologizes to everyone. He does the legit burning of the film. He has the game tape. He throws it in trash can, lights it on fire. They throw the jerseys in. The only jerseys they own, by the way. He then
this is the next episode. He goes to the principal and he's like, "Hey, I need new jerseys."
Yeah, I burned them all.
And he's like, "We don't have any funding for that."
So he actually puts, I think it's like $5,000 from his own money.
Yeah, that becomes a bit of an issue because
Miss Taylor,
he's hiding it from her in the beginning, and she's like, "Where is this money going?"
It's funny because he, like, the Under Armour guy, he's like, "Coach, I know what's going on here. Like, I'll try and help you. I'll defer the payment as long as I can, but I will need it by the end of like the season." And he's like, "All right, I'll do what I can." And she goes, "Honey, there's a check missing from the checkbook. Do you know what that's about?" And he's like, "Yeah, $32 for the dry cleaner." And even that, she's like, "You got to tell me these things." So like,
I forgot about that.
For $32, she's already like, up his back, and we're talking about $5,000 here.
It's funny because their relationship, I never called into question like the security of that relationship, but they have these quirky moments that, granted they are serious, but like for the viewer, I think it's more funny.
I like Miss Taylor like 90% of the time, but the only time I don't is when she gets a little holier than thou. Sometimes it's with Julie, but as we've decided, Julie probably needs that all the time.
It's back and forth. There's times when it's rare, but there was times when her and Julie would get into it, and I was like, okay, Julie, in my opinion, based on my personal experience, I think Julie was right about this.
Yeah.
It was like, again, 10% of the time.
Yeah.
And there's other times where they get into it, and, she's right. But, yeah, I mean, yeah, she does. She gets kind of high and mighty at certain points.
Yeah. Like there's not like when her and Matt are kind of starting to hook up or something, like you can be a mom at that moment, like that's fine.
There's other times, like I said, she's completely right,
because at one point she tries to be calm about that whole, like, she's like, "I saw Matt Saracen buying condoms. She's either buying it for you or he's buying them for someone else." Like she does at least try to like level with her a little bit, but yeah, so so at this point it's the only, which real quick, you mentioned like the fabric of their relationship. I'm so glad there was never, because it's too easy to do in TV shows for either of them. You had the little thing with like the ex-boyfriend coming into town of Miss Taylor's, which you said is actually the writer of the show, right?
Yeah, Peter Berg, and he was also involved with the movie. So it's, I think, the season ender of season 2. Peter Berg comes in, and
he's like a helicopter lease person, like big,
yeah, he's
big fuck you money, like
And so he's very insistent that they keep on coming out to these events and seeing him and everything like that, and talking to him, and eventually he insists on dinner. And it becomes this big a cockfight between him and Coach Taylor, drinking contest.
And then they end up fighting in this fancy restaurant.
Oh, yeah, they end up tearing the place apart. And but, yeah, that's Peter Berg, in case you didn't know that, or anyone, who was the writer of the show and the movie.
So that's the closest you come to this, but it happens in every other show, and I'm glad that there was never a like.
There was one other guy, although she wasn't interested in him, but it was the other teacher at the one school.
Right, but there was never a legit like affair angle.
Oh no,
which I'm so glad they never went that way.
He went in for a kiss, and she was like, "Nope." They're very secure in their relationship.
That's what I mean. So that's the one thing. Like they have their problems, but it's never that generic. Like
you don't have to deal with that kind of drama. Luckily, you already dealt with it between Jason and Tyra, not Tyra, Jason and Lila and Tim.
And then Julie has her problem. So like I'm glad it's not with them.
The Swede.
But the Swede, the lifeguard.
Even Coach Taylor was rooting for Matt in that situation.
Yeah.
He hated the Swede.
Like he thought he hated Matt until he met literally anybody else.
Oh man.
Because they meet in a grocery store and like the only thing he's like, hey, don't sit back and watch it happen.
He's like, fight for her.
Yeah. He's like, at least it's like the devil I know is better than the devil I don't. It's, as the dad, that's probably how he's looking at that. But make sure I got back on track. Okay, so they get the jerseys, or they come in or whatever. One of my favorite lines that's very hidden when they come in for the next game, and they have the boxes of the new the jerseys. I love the clash of East and West Dillion. Dillion is blue and white, and then East is red and white. It's just the perfect it makes it obvious who's what at this point.
And they're both cat related. This is one of the things I wanted to get into because eventually they become competitors.
It's like the big cat clash is the rivalry or something.
And they didn't stick with that too much, I thought. And I love that idea because there was a trophy involved.
We only see them play twice, so I guess it goes as far as we would. But
I love that though.
Yeah, as they're unveiling the jerseys, everyone's like, "Oh my god, look at these!" They're all hyped about it. He actually gets them the shush, which is like the first time that they really listen to him as a unit at once. And he says one of my favorite lines. He goes, "They might be new, but they're still work clothes," and it gets everybody hype, and they go out there. And the thing, we're so used to Coach winning 70% of all games, right? The win in this is like they ran plays productively, and they actually score
from the ground up.
Yeah, they score. They lose 20-6, and they feel
scored a touchdown.
Right.
They're just happy about that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I think that he made it clear they had to earn the jerseys.
Yes.
You've got to, if you're going to be a part of the team, you're going to be a part of the team.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't just for you.
And around this time, Landry, again, he's on the team. He's kind of been just playing whatever. I think he goes back to corner and tight end because their team is so small that a lot of guys are playing both ways, which is not something you deal with on you deal with regular Dillion. Luke is playing running back and linebacker. And then Vince, he's mostly running back, but he's safety or something. You can tell he has to do other things.
And eventually Luke, and this becomes a major part later on, he ends up playing both sides of the field. And that kind of goes into his whole recruitment process.
Yeah.
Where it's this guy can play all over the place because he was a great player.
Which is a lost art to do. In high school, kids do it, but it's not anywhere near what it used to be. No. But so Coach brings Landry into his office, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to need you to work on some punting." And he gets all excited. He goes, "Yeah, I'd love to return some punts." He's like, "No, I need you to punt and kick because we don't have that." That's actually the reason they only scored 6. They don't know. I think that whoever kicks the extra point misses because he's not a true kicker or punter or whatever.
They haven't really tackled that role yet.
Yeah.
But someone who ends up helping, Landry ends up doing it.
Yes.
He's a little hesitant at first.
He's like, "I've never in my life or whatever." And so he's out in the park, which the thing is he's definitely never kicked. And it took me back to this scene where Matt has the tire swing in his yard that he's throwing the footballs through. And Landry is just throwing one too, just because he's there talking with him. And Matt's grandma comes out and goes, "Landry, stop throwing that football. You throw it like a girl." And instead of saying yes or no, he goes, "All right, but I'm gonna throw one more." and she's like, "No," and she literally doesn't let him throw another ball.
Yeah.
But
he's out there practicing. Yeah. And we haven't really tackled her yet. But
this is when we really meet her. Is he's out there practicing. He's gonna do punting and kicking, but he's learning punting or whatever.
Right. Well,
and
he knows. Okay, so the person we're talking about is Jess.
Jess Merriweather.
Okay,
is out in the park with her little brothers, seeing Landry practice not well.
Right. And they met because he ran over her bike.
Oh my God! Yeah,
that
did
happen. Replace it and get her a new one. Mm-hmm. But they ended up becoming friends, and you could tell he was attracted to her. Mm-hmm. And they end up, like I said, becoming friends, and she's helping him out because she's part of a football family. Her dad, though, Ray, and I love Ray. He's an underrated character.
I like Ray, but I do have one gaffe about him later. But in general, I like Ray. He's actually, back when East Dillion was open prior, They had won state in like 83, 86, something like that. And he was actually the quarterback on that team.
Right. Yeah. So he's got some experience.
But I think he had some sort of injury that stopped him from going to college, and he kind of like this is the deal with a lot of people.
After that,
a lot of people when the game doesn't kind of hurts you, you kind of like it's like a person. Like if they do you wrong, you kind of distance yourself from them. So he opens a restaurant, Ray's Barbecue. Food always looks great in the show. Like not every time fantastic. You see food in the show does it look awesome, but you're
Buddy's
like,
there all the time. But yeah, no. So it's kind of like the rest of the family loves football, but they have to kind of hide it from him, and he's the one who has the most experience anyway.
Like he lets the little brothers play, but he's like, all right, y'all go play and then come home. Like he doesn't.
They're so young at this point. They can't even be a part of a team or anything like that. But yeah, so she goes out and she's helping out. She's actually, when we made our top 3 characters, mine was Coach Taylor and Tim Riggins and her. Yeah. She was my third.
She's pretty great.
Well, not in a particular order, but she is a fantastic character from beginning to end, I'd say. She's a hard worker. Yeah. She, really helps out with Landry. She helps out with Vince. She is there for the team. She becomes equipment manager. Yep. I mean, I just have the utmost respect for that character. Right. And I know last time I was going, crazy over Tyra and whatnot because she makes great character development. Just as beginning is good from the beginning to the end.
Well, just as like Tyra, if Tyra loved football. It makes it easier. She's in more scenes because she has non-football scenes and football scenes.
That's true, yeah. So I mean, she knows the game in and out to the point where she has to give because Billy becomes an assistant coach, and she has to give him tips at one point. And
he actually gives a tip given from her in a meeting, and that's like the first time they're like, "All right, Billy, good stuff."
And she hears it and she's happy about it because he took her advice. But I also kind of. Again, he's got to justify his position on the team, on the staff, so he can't really give her credit. But I kind of wish he did,
because which I think later on he does give her the credit, which is how she gets the equipment manager thing.
I thought she was already equipment manager.
Well, it makes her instead of like fine, you can do this and stay out of the way, and then eventually,
and we respect you, being around.
So
she tries to go for a coaching position later, and Taylor I like the relationship too between her and Coach Taylor.
I love
they have kind of a boss and have you ever had that boss that you're really close with, almost like they're kind of like a fun
friend
dad, or an older brother, something like that. Coach Taylor and her have that relationship, and he tries to help her like get a coaching position wherever
down the line,
because at the time there really wasn't any female coaches in football except for like one, and she uses that in an argument against him. We're like, please, come on, I
can be this person too.
It's happening across the nation slowly but surely, and we're still working on it here in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, there's more than there was, obviously.
Right.
But I think this coming year there'll be the first full-time non-strength coach, like an actual football position, full-time in the NFL. I believe it's on the Cardinals.
That's
Arizona
awesome.
Cardinals.
Yeah.
But
so we went off on a tangent.
Well, no, this is like you said, this is one of your favorite characters, and her arc is great.
I love her.
Yeah. You do find out like you kind of know who she is now, and she's kind of helping Landry. And then you find out that her and Vince have kind of, I don't know if they're dating, but kind of had an on again, off again. I think they've known each other.
They had a past.
They've known each other for a long time. And so what happens eventually is Jess's dad, who owns this restaurant, who of course is, very, very popular. Yeah, I love it. He temporarily relocates to Dallas because he's turning his restaurant into like a franchise. Like he's opening multiple.
That's in season 5.
Yes,
he's around for all of season 4.
But I was saying my one gripe with him, like, because he talks about like family this, family that. I'm like, then you up and leave. I get it, like you're building your business, like.
And I think she had to take care of all.
Exactly, leaves her
brothers.
to do everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, her and
I agree with you on that.
Yeah, like I think he's a good dude, but like that is one thing. I'm like, you can't say family, and then like you're gone for a whole season.
It was a lame excuse for the writers.
Yeah, something must happen with the actor
or something like that.
But so her and Vince had a past, and now her and Landry are kind of like hanging out more and stuff. And the team is, again, they're not winning games, which normally, like, it's hard to watch a team lose week in and week out, but the show doesn't get boring because they're losing. It's the way they are able to pull that off is crazy.
Year.
Yeah.
It's a building process.
So as the season goes on, they eventually flip the whole Vince actually needs to be the quarterback and Luke needs to go back to his true position at running back. They do give Luke a kind of wildcat offense part, which mixes into their first win of the season, where they actually They call it the toilet bowl. It's basically them and another team that has no win. So it's one of those, somebody has to get a win here. Like that happens in high school all the time. Like two bad teams end up playing each other. Somebody gets a win. So they finally like take that. It's like muddy too. It's like the game isn't even fun to watch, but they do. I think they win like 6-7 or something crazy because Landry is finally well enough to kick an extra point, and they win. It's either like 10-7 or 6-7, but they basically, not that it's like a game winning kick, but like the fact that you could kick is why they're able to win.
Yeah.
So they're moving along here in this first season, and you're still seeing Dillon. You kind of pop in and out of West Dillon, and like they win games, they lose games. They're at the point like East Dillon, they're eliminated from the playoffs by like the third or fourth game. Dillon Panthers are still like, I think they have to win the last game of the year to get in. So they play East Dillon in the last game of this season.
Oh, right.
And Dillon coach basically says, "Listen, we can get in the playoffs, but we can play spoilers." And a lot of teams have been put in that position in the past, and they actually beat West Dillon by a field goal by Landry. This is a true last-second game-winning field goal situation, and so they finished their season. I believe it's like 2-9 or 2-10, and the fact that they were able to make a 2-win season entertaining is like kudos to them, because that never you're so used to going to state, going to playoffs,
right,
winning 7 of 10 games.
But they went from having like literally no equipment, no field or anything like that other than just this brown rugged area to actually getting a couple wins. You get to see the building process. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about favorite moments of the TV series last episode. And now that I think about it, my favorite, one of my favorite moments was during this season when Coach Taylor goes and he gets all the alumni who were part of that championship year.
That's actually Buddy's idea.
Was it Buddy's idea?
Yeah, because at this point, Buddy is kicked out of the.
He just call them all together for dinner, right?
Yes, he calls them in,
and Ray's kind of reluctant,
but he goes.
He does go.
Yep.
And eventually, they end up doing. I think it's when they're fundraising for the T-shirts, maybe. Mm-hmm. And Ray's Barbecue is helping out and everything like that. And so they have this crowd in town, and one of them goes up on stage, and it's the alumni, and he's talking about pride. He goes, because we're Lions. And so we need to be full of pride and everything like that of our community and of our team and help them out. And he gives this great speech, and it's one of my favorite moments because it legitimizes the team. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, originally we didn't have any equipment. People were quitting left and right. You got coaches quitting left and right. It wasn't working out. Honestly, the first 2 or 3 episodes, it could fall apart at any moment.
Because the principal's not even behind it at this point.
He doesn't care.
Yeah, he does not care.
And he ends up becoming one of the biggest fans. He's at every game, and
because when he asked him for the uniforms, he's like, "How about we finish games before you ask me for money?"
Exactly.
Which is a dig, but it's an understandable one.
It's a slap in the face.
Yeah.
But when they have that speech, and it's all about the community, about the team and whatnot, and it's all about pride, that is probably one. Like I had chills during that scene because I was like, fuck yeah, man.
But even during that,
we're becoming real now.
Even during that, Ray kind of like rolls his eyes and just kind of goes back to cooking. Even that doesn't get him, which is crazy. Because like you said, it's a great scene. It's a great like power up moment.
I think he gets more involved later on, and I'm trying to remember what changed his mind exactly. I don't know if it was Jess or if it was
Jess
Vince's
gives him.
dad coming back or something.
I think Jess gives him like it's part of my life. It's part of the boys' life. Like it's part of yours. You don't have to love it like we do, but like we like to make you a part of it. I think it's like something to that effect.
Yeah.
So during this whole thing, Matt, again, he's kind of off doing his like art thing. He moves to Chicago. He doesn't even really tell anybody. I guess like grandma knows, obviously.
It took him a bit to get there.
Yeah.
He was sticking around for a little bit and it wasn't working out. And he just up and left.
When he leaves, it's like a Goodwill Hunting. He's just like gone.
I don't think he even said bye.
No, like Ben Affleck comes to the door.
I will give Julie this. I don't blame her for being upset about that.
That's one I'll give her.
Just up and left without even saying anything.
But he does come home for Christmas.
Sorry. Yeah, that's good.
I'm going to come to the door and you're not going to be there. No goodbye, no nothing. You just left. Like he basically pulls one of those.
Yeah.
But so he comes home for
Landry, Ben Affleck.
I guess for this case, but he comes home for Christmas, and that's when Julie they're officially over at this point because you up and left. I can't forgive you. Blah blah blah. So he's like, all right, well, not gonna hang out with Julie. I'll go hang out with Landry. And even Landry's a little pissed that he's
right off the bat.
Yeah.
Oh, and one of my favorite jokes. He comes in. He does let him in. He's kind of hesitant.
Well, he's like, I would have liked at least one phone call, basically.
Right.
Like,
He's
he
like,
does
just
give
as
him
your
shit.
best friend and everything.
Yeah.
As he's walking back into the house, he's like, not that I matter or anything like that. You did miss my game-winning kick the other night. He goes, I scored like 87, or no, it was an 87-yard kick.
Yeah, no, he goes, like, because he wants to be mad at him, but he also, like, it's his best friend. He hasn't seen him. He goes, whatever, man. Did you hear about my field goal? And he's like, I did hear about your field goal. It's like an 87-yard field goal. Like, he's got to – because he has to brag to somebody. He doesn't have anyone to brag to.
Multiple times,
and it's like the fish.
He's getting it. Yeah, it's getting bigger and bigger in the distance. No, I do love that friendship that they had, and I'm glad that he forgave him quickly. But I'm glad he also gave him shit.
Yeah. And this is Landry's senior year, as we said. He's a year younger than Matt, so this is his as a player and as a main role. This is his send off. Is really that kick. He ends up going to. He sticks around for a while through summer and everything. He goes to Rice University I believe it's in Houston. It's one of the bigger Texas universities. It always confused me that they use fictional TMU, but then they mention like Alabama and they mention
probably have to get permission. That would just be a guess. I don't know. But
so he does eventually go off to do his own thing. But like as a send off for him as a player and everything, I like how they, in a season that didn't mean much, they still gave him a big moment.
Talking about Landry?
Yeah.
Well, I think part of I could be wrong. It could be my memory failing me, but him and Jess were together for a little bit, and I did like them together.
He buys her a bike.
Yeah, he finally.
Yep.
And they did make a good couple. I thought that they had some good chemistry, but her and Vince had much better chemistry, and she admits that at some point, like, hey, there's just something there that I can't get past. And in the beginning, I was like, come on, but they do. According to Joy, actually, the two actors have worked together before in previous things, and so they have a natural chemistry, I think. And I think that she was one of the reasons he left. Isn't it like it just kind of goes to the plane and it shows Matt's going back to Chicago, and then boom, Landry is right there with him. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, he's gone too. And I don't think he comes back until maybe the series finale. Yeah, he shows up just for Christmas
towards at the end of the thing. Yeah. So like this show does such a great job of like characters you love. It gives them a send off so good that you don't necessarily miss them as much as you would.
And going on to something better.
And then they replace them with characters you immediately care about, so you never feel like someone's missing. Like Tim Riggin, again, he hangs out. He ends up becoming like a coach, not really a coach, but like a special, like a running back,
an advisor.
But as you mentioned, Billy does become defensive assistant. Is brother Billy.
I mean, at one point they both show up in uniforms to help out,
to help scrimmage, which is a really funny scene because it's like the two of them against the whole defense, but it is grown ass men against 16-year-olds.
Plus, they have a lot more experience.
Yes,
and not just experience, but winning experience. Yeah. But yeah, Billy ends up becoming a defensive coach,
like the God of D, which he should have thought twice before he came up with his own nickname.
I do love Billy. I know we talked about in the beginning. He's a little bit of a rough
he becomes
character.
One of my favorite characters.
He does become rough. We could do without the Speedo scenes. I'm tired of seeing the dude in a Speedo. You know what I'm saying? And Billy, in seasons 3, 4, and 5, he takes on a much bigger role.
Yes.
And I'm glad that he does. And it's the same thing with Tyra's sister, Mindy. She has kind of a backseat role.
Who ends up marrying and having kids with Billy Riggins.
Yeah. And she ends up becoming a main character because she kind of takes on a motherly sort of figure for Becky. We haven't even gotten to Becky yet.
Yeah, we'll get to Becky here in a minute.
But that's what I like about seasons 4 and 5 is because even though other characters are moving out, like Landry and Matt and even Tim to an extent.
He's Jason's not a main.
Gone at this point. Yeah. Smash is gone. They make room for all these new characters, and you're right. You care about them like right off the bat. Mindy, some of the backseat characters that were around for seasons 1, 2, and all that. You didn't really care about so much, and then they take on really prominent roles in 3, 4, and 5. And
so Smash, his whole write-off is he had to work past his leg injury that knocked him out of the playoffs. He has a lot of highs and lows. He's supposed to play at like Whitmore University, which is a HBCU. The football isn't great, but he'll get an education. Becomes content with that, but he gets another injury, and they have to pull a scholarship, even though they don't want to. He works his way all the way back to where he walks on at Texas A&M. And there are two or three instances where they're at a bar and you never really see him, but you hear, another 10-yard gain for freshman Brian Williams.
Either that or at Coach Taylor's house.
Yeah.
I noticed he'll have football on in the
And
background.
he's usually watching Smash.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, Smash Williams with another touchdown. I'm like, I'm just glad they're mentioning the name.
Because Buddy eventually sells his car dealership and opens a bar, and Tim ends up working at the bar. And it comes on at one point, and he just Buddy's like, smash the Aggie, because that's their mascot. And, he's I think that's the last time he says smash the Aggie, like, and he's all proud. And I think that's the last you hear of him.
Some quick background information. Sorry to go off, not too off topic, but the actor who played Smash, a lot of the actors, they had experience with sports. Like, Taylor Kitsch had played hockey for like 20 years or something like that. I don't know how to say his name, Gaius or Gaius, for the guy who played Smash, had like no sports experience whatsoever. But his player goes off to be the most successful out of all of them.
That's true. That's a good point.
So I thought that was kind of interesting. But continuing on with what you're saying about Smash.
Yeah, like the way they send players off, or really characters in general, like they end up giving you like you miss them.
Tidbits.
Yeah, and you miss them, but you don't never really wonder what's going on with them, because you find out enough. Jason Street ends up becoming a sports agent. He actually convinces someone who was a senior when he was like a freshman, who went on to, they say like Pennsylvania University. I assume it's supposed to be Penn State based on the colors of his shirt, but he's going to sign with this agency because he's about to go in the draft. And he has a choice between this like smaller Texas-based agency where Jason's trying to get a job, or he can go with like this big agency. And he's like, listen, truth be told, I am trying to get a job here, but if you go to this big agency, you're just a number. Like, you're going to be one of 1,000 clients. Where here you're one of 10, and you will get 100% around the clock. And the fact that he was able to bring them back to the small company, he ends up getting the job, and his first client essentially is a former teammate of his. So that's how Jason ends up getting his ride off in the sunset.
He has quite a few projects and jobs and everything before he goes off. And the thing is,
they try to flip a house, him and the Riggins,
It just did not work out. I don't think.
I think it's Buddy's house. They buy Buddy's house.
It's him, Herc, Tim, and Billy.
Yep.
And they're just arguing like the entire time. Like Billy doesn't like being told what to do. Jason loves telling everyone what to do. Herc and Tim are kind of just there.
My favorite part of that whole thing, like, he's helped me. Yeah, he's like, I'll hammer something into a wall, but I'm gonna drink while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
He goes, all right, guys, me and Herc will start in the downstairs bathroom. Do you guys want to start with the upstairs bedroom? And Billy goes, why do we got to go upstairs? And they just look down at their wheelchairs, and he's like, okay, right.
Yeah. I like, though, they try to bring Jason back as an assistant coach, and then that ended up not working out. And then Tim comes back, and he's kind of like an assistant coach, and then that didn't work out. But the thing is, I wanted to see at some point some ex-athlete come back and be a coach, because that does happen.
Yeah.
From my coaching classes and everything at UCF, as they say, some of the best coaches are people who are like mediocre players, but put their all into it.
Because they had to be coachable to play at all.
Like Coach Church, he was our nutrition coach and everything like that, or nutrition professor. And he used to play sports back in the day, but he called himself a has-been that never was, because he just wasn't a great player. And he just made a better coach. We finally got to see that with Billy.
Yeah.
Although we didn't see Billy's playing days, you always heard that, he used to play.
He did play, and he was on a team that won state. That's all we really know.
Right.
He might have been a backup. He even says at one point, he's like, I was the smallest guy on my team, but when I hit you, you knew it, or something to that effect.
Yeah. So he's going to try the hardest.
At most, he was even a special teams player, but he was on the team. And he knew what it was like to be.
What we talked about, like with Landry. Landry wasn't the most athletic guy, but he was part of that glue. Those people will try their hardest for the coach, for the team, to keep it moving forward, even if they don't have the talent.
So you mentioned
cool that Billy knows the sport in and out, so he ended up becoming a coach.
The God of D, again, his nickname, which not great. He ends up doing the whole. If you've ever seen Hawaii football, he teaches them the Hawaii battle dance or whatever.
The war chant.
Which hypes everybody up. You had mentioned how you love the relationship between Coach Taylor and Jess. I actually also love, almost equally, how Billy, once he becomes a coach, his relationship with Coach Taylor, because at no point he respects him to the point that it's like fear. Like, anytime he goes to talk to him, he has to write down what he's going to say beforehand. Like, no matter what, he's always
rehearses.
Yeah, he rehearses it in the mirror. He has to write it down. Like, if he walks into the office, he takes his hat off real quick. Like, he to the point of fear, he respects Coach Taylor that much.
General.
Yes, exactly. So
There is one point when Coach is late for a game or something like that, and Billy ends up stepping above all the other coaches to give the speech, and I thought he was going to fuck it up.
Yeah.
I really did think he was going to fuck it up, and it was just going to be some silly scene or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Coach Taylor he gets there, and he hears the speech, and it's actually really good.
So he just sits in the back.
He just lets him do his thing.
Fun fact, when I had to take this acting class, and I had to do a monologue for like an assignment, and I actually did Billy's speech as my monologue. So
nice.
Yeah, so he
I
actually
think that's an important scene.
Yeah,
you know, that's character development.
So he actually, Coach says, you know, he lets him do his thing. He literally says, "That was a good job," and then he goes, "Gentlemen, I am late, and I apologize. Let's go get him." And that's all it had. I forget exactly the reason for it at the moment, but
real quick before we move on to the next thing, I just realized we never even talked about how he got into that position, and it's because Tim he was doing a job that was illegal with they were breaking down car parts. Yeah. Tim joined him. Tim took the blame for it, went off to jail. Yeah, that's kind of a big thing because that's why Tim is not in season 5 for most of the. He's in the first 2 or 3 episodes, or you know, you hear his name a lot, but then Billy has a kid, and that's the only reason Tim takes the blame is because Billy needs to be there to raise the kid. Yep. And he says, "I'm going to do right by you and everything. I'm going to get a legitimate job," and that's when he becomes. And I'm going to help the community by becoming a coach. Yep. Also, and I think that's a big deal.
Riggins rigs. They turn it legitimate. No more breaking down car parts. He just becomes the mechanic and everything. So as we move into season 5, right around this time, way back when, the Calvin Brown character that Vince Howard is friends with ends up getting shot in a drive-by that Calvin was trying to get Vince to go with him. And back at this point with the Jess situation, Vince and Landry aren't on great terms. And he just said, this is about 3/4 of the way through season 4.
Right.
And he goes, "It's like, hey man, I just wanted to say I'm really sorry about your friend. Like that sucks." And he's obviously not ready to talk about it yet. So he goes, "What do you care? You don't even know his name." He goes, "Calvin Brown." And I just wanted to say I'm sorry. And he walks off. And at this point, they don't really. He realizes
he apologizes to him later that episode, though.
He's because he
was big on Vince.
Yeah, he kind of agrees. He's like, to take care of Jess. I think after they win that game against Dillion, because winning cures all and everything. So like that ends up happening.
If only.
Yeah.
So I think Landry was kind of accepting of the idea. At first, he really did want to keep fighting for Jess, but I think he understood there was just something there because she was the one that was comforting him after Calvin died.
Yes.
He went to her place and he's crying and she takes care of him.
Because at first she's like,
there's just something there that can't be broken.
At first she's like, "Vince, what are you doing here?" And he, once she tells him, embraces him completely and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's roughly how the season 4 and season 5 things turn on such ahead. They have to play the Kingsville team again in the first game.
The one that they didn't even make it through the full team. Yeah, that was a big episode.
Yeah. And they end up wiping the floor with them. Everything clicks. They have just him and Luke are doing great. Dallas Tinker, we mentioned a little bit. He's such a,
what did I call him earlier? By accident, Tinkle.
I
forgot his name.
Yeah,
so I was like, Dallas Tinkle.
Yeah, but Dallas Tinker, he's defensive tackle. He's the heart and soul of the team now. He's the new Landry. Like, he plays, he's a starter and everything, but like, he's such a good, like, comes a point where Luke, as we mentioned, lives on a farm, and his dad won't let him go to school, let alone practice, because they have to fix a fence so their cows don't get out.
Tinker's out there.
Tinker shows up at
Becky's
6
out there helping too.
6 a.m, helping him.
Yeah,
and
Tinker's got good chemistry with every teammate. Yeah, that, or at least every teammate that has a name on the show.
And you can tell when he shows up, Luke's dad. Again, they're simple or country folk. I don't know that it's a race thing, but he's not comfortable with Tinker being there at first.
I don't think he vocally said anything, but or verbalized.
It's all body language.
You could kind of tell something was up.
Yeah,
so I know exactly what you're talking about.
And
I'm thinking the same thing.
And he's helping him fix the fence, and he's like, "Well, what are you doing out here? You could be doing anything at 7 o'clock in the morning." He's like, "Well, Luke's a good dude. If I help Luke, I'm helping the team."
He was kind of accepting after that.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, "I can't argue with that." So as we're rolling into season 5, we see Tim gets out of jail around this time, and he doesn't want to go back home. He's not ready to face anybody yet.
Right.
He ends up going to the bar, hooks up with some bartender, which ends up being Becky's mom, which we'll talk about Becky here in a minute.
That was before jail.
Was that before jail?
Yeah, jail was after. Because he ended up hooking up with her just some random night that he was at a bar. He was kind of going downhill again. Like when he went to Mexico, he has his spirals. Right. He hooks up with Becky's mom, and then ends up meeting Becky the next morning.
Who is another? She's in a way she's the new Tyra because she's not football related. Yeah. She ends up, her and Luke end up becoming an item. After a pregnancy scare, actually, the first night they hook up.
Yeah, they hook up on a random night. She's really into Tim while he's living there, but it just isn't happening. No. You know? And the thing is, which good on him because at this point he's like 20 and she's probably like 17. So good on him. And the thing is, it's even more like the actor, dude. He was fucking 26. Like when he took on this role of a 17-year-old. That happens all the time. I know.
Well, it's so hard to find.
It was just so clear with him,
Yeah, but it's so hard to find like an 18-year-old actor that has like the chops to do like a 5 seasons of a show. So like you kind of have to do this after a while.
But she was really into him, and Lila makes a reappearance in season 4 after Matt's dad dies. She comes along. She comes along for the funeral, and then she goes to visit Tim, and her and Becky kind of run into each other, and there's a little bit
because she went to talk to him. He basically rents out a trailer that's just chilling in their yard
in the backyard,
and she just goes in to talk to him. But as Lila's getting there, Becky's coming out of the trailer.
Yeah,
so it's like
there's a little exchange, and then but nothing has happened between them. And like you said, good on him because she's a sophomore in high school.
Yeah,
he's a year out of high school at this point. This is still season 4. And again, I liked Lila and Tim together, and they do end up hooking up, but it just doesn't work out. She's going back to college. He wasn't able to make it in college. He went for like 1 episode.
Yep.
And came back.
And you literally see him driving back home, throwing his textbooks out the window on this like dirt road.
And it's just not for everyone, but he still ended up doing some good with his life.
But and again, Luke and Becky become a thing.
Have the pregnancy scare.
Do you as a couple I like them because Luke, as we know, is pretty pure. Becky's got a weird family life. Her dad and mom kind of come in and out.
Oh yeah. And that's part of what made Mindy so damn protective over her because in the beginning when Becky was staying over with the Riggins, I forgot why she ended up staying with them. That she needed a place.
Well, the dad is a truck driver, and then the mom was just barely coming home. So
right, the mom was gone. The dad came home, and he was bringing his new girlfriend along.
Yeah,
and she didn't get along with her. They didn't click, so she goes to stay with the Riggins,
and they get a really strong friendship at this point.
Well, in the beginning, her and Mindy Mindy couldn't stand her.
Well, I believe her line is there's a chick in my hen house and I don't like it.
Right. And then Mindy goes to take her back home. And this is kind of a scene where Mindy steps up. She goes to take her back home and drop her off.
And sees the situation they're in.
Oh, yeah. They're arguing right there in front of Mindy. So Mindy steps on. She's like, I'm taking her back home. She takes on like a motherly protective sort of stance. And I was like, all right, good on you. Like, you really stepped up. But yeah, so Becky, we didn't really talk about her too much, but her and Luke, in the beginning, I thought it was like, this isn't going to work out.
I won't say it's an important role in the show, but it's a very good one.
It is. Like they do end up becoming a good couple.
You could tell the story without her if you wanted to, but I'm glad that she is there.
You could technically do the same with Tyra, but it just like it shows how tight knit the community is, especially based around football.
She's essentially the new Tyra.
Yeah. I think, like I said, it all starts with the football, but then it branches out, and these are the people that it impacts who are close to the teammates, even if they're not directly involved with the team.
So as the football season at this point is going on, they're crushing everybody. They actually pick up. Finally, Luke, you get your wide receiver we're talking about. Like a game or two into the season, this kid comes to town. He's actually a basketball player by trade. Ruckle Hastings is his name. He's total hipster.
No, Hastings Ruckle. Remember?
Oh, I had it backwards again. I assume Hastings
sounds like a last name. It really should
be. You're absolutely right. Hastings Ruckle. He's a basketball player, total hipster, to the point that
I don't do teams, man.
Yeah,
I don't do equipment.
Yeah, he's like, just guys smashing into each other. It just shows the anger of society. Like total D-bag early on. But they talk him into it, and he gets in a game later, and like they have to throw a Hail Mary, and he's like, literally just run over there and then
jump higher than everyone
else. Yeah,
else.
which actually he's like,
that's what he's got going.
He's on the sideline just standing there, and the Hail Mary thing's coming up, and he's there with Coach Taylor, and he's like, Coach, I play basketball with number 17 on the other team. He goes, oh, really? That's great. Like trying to dismiss him. He goes, no, I dunk on him all the time. I can out jump that guy.
Oh, you're right. It ends up being the turning point of that game. Yeah.
So he puts him in. He runs, like just a back shoulder fade essentially, and he does it once at that point, and then he does it again for a Hail Mary. And that's really when he kind of understands what football is all about. I think when Buddy talks him into doing it, even he's like, son, I think you like football. You just, you love football. You just don't know it yet. Like, and it was true because he turns out to really enjoy what he's doing, to the point that the basketball coach is trying to, because he's like
getting on the bus and the basketball
he's like,
coach
don't
is
do this.
No, get back here. There was some like team bonding when they were trying to convince him to get on the team and all that. They were throwing these parties, and Luke multiple times throughout seasons 4 and 5 gets way too drunk. Like, and this is one of those moments where he kind of makes a fool out of himself. And I don't know, maybe it's just something about Luke's in general. They become idiots when they're drunk.
Hey.
And but he ends up kind of being an asshole towards him when he's trying to be nice or something like that. He's like, why don't you want to be part of the team, man? Don't you want to be like hanging out with all of us and all that? Don't you want to be a man?
And then they get
Jess in.
They get these L brands on their arm for lions because they're just dumb and drunk.
Luke was an absolute idiot during that scene. I think they all did it though.
Yes, they all did it.
But he was
the ringmaker in that.
Oh, he was the dumbass.
So we're about halfway through season 5 at this point. Vince, because his dad, who's had drug issues, is back in the picture. He's starting to get college recruits, interests and stuff. So he's at the point where he's trying to like pad his stats, and they end up playing this around the time they roll around. They play West Dillion again, and they not only do they beat them, it's not a last-second field goal situation. They are crushing them, and then on the last play of the game, he throws like an 80-yard Hail Mary to run up the score because his dad says go show off the arm. It's not the play that coach calls. He wanted to kneel. I think they're in a kneel down formation, and he audibles out of it. Touchdown.
That's one thing I got to give Coach Taylor is he knew when to not embarrass the other team. He knew when to kind of take the high road, go ahead and look, we've already won, just run out the clock.
He's still coaching at this point. He's coaching against Mac again because he's the coach of West Dillion. He still respects Mac. I don't think there's any ill will there. So he would never run up the score on him. And, I think it's like 20-40. It's just they were the better team. But then he throws that. And Mac is pissed because why wouldn't he think Coach called it?
He's rubbing. Yeah, exactly.
So at this point, Vince kind of gets a big head, and Luke, even though he's just as important to this, the biggest recruiting he gets is like a D3 school.
Yeah, Vince definitely has more talent.
And the only reason is because the team is so small that everybody plays both ways, and they admire the fact that he plays both ways, and that's really the only reason he gets. So Vince is they're going out to eat at some other place, and
Vince's dad keeps on setting up these meetings. He takes them to
that are illegal,
and they're not even the coaches at the school they go to visit aren't even allowed to talk to him.
No,
by the
it's actually a really cool scene.
They sit there and like two of the coaches are having a conversation
in front of Vince and the dad,
and they're like, "You tell that Vince kid, that I want to see him here next year," and blah blah blah. And it was just kind of.
Which I'm sure totally happens too. That's the thing.
I'm sure because he's not there off to my left.
This was another
his
scenario.
Dad keeps on like stepping in the way and kind of taking his eye off the like they got to focus on the season that's in front of him. The thing is, Vince was a junior too, and they're looking at him already. He's not even a senior yet.
Yeah, this isn't like college. You can't forego your senior year of high school and go to college. So
I mean, like they're already kind of overstepping. Luke is a senior. He was a year older.
Yep.
And they should have been focused on him. But his dad is just overstepping the boundaries. And the thing is, his dad came back, and in the beginning, everyone was kind of wary about him. But then he
was around enough that they're like, all right, maybe he's doing okay. And then he's
got some goodwill in the beginning, and then as soon as he starts selling again, he starts fucking up. And but yeah, he starts getting in the way, setting up all these meetings, forcing Vince to do this and that, and Vince is going along with it in the beginning. But then you got Coach Taylor and Jess and all that are like, this is not the path you want to go down. Right. We need to focus on what's in front of you first. And there's a whole I'd say it's like half a season they're dealing with these issues.
So because of Vince gets a big head, and he gets a little bit of the smash thing. He's like, I'm gonna go to college. And again, it's the trip he takes is to Oklahoma Tech, which it bothers me because in real life it's Oklahoma State. Like, and that's just like, why can't they just call it what it is? But so he gets a big head. They end up losing the last game of the season, which ruins their undefeated. They're going to the playoffs anyway. The game doesn't mean much. But to not get the undefeated season, because Vince tries to do too much. He doesn't trust his teammates. He could throw this wide open pass right here, but he'd rather run and show off his speed. So he kind of shows his ass, and because of that, they don't win. And the team, this is a 10-1 team going to the playoffs, probably but they're in disarray for the first time all year at this point.
They were better off when they were 2-8.
Right. The team became closer at the time. So they actually bench Vince for the first game because the whole time, Vince's dad is saying, do whatever you want. What's he going to do, bench you for the playoffs? Guess
And
what?
he does.
Fucking benches him for the playoffs. And he puts Luke in at quarterback and runs that Wildcat offense.
And it
with
works,
Luke
doesn't it?
Not well at first, but
Right.
well enough
there's a little
to win.
bit of friction,
Yeah.
But then once they get some traction going, they show it's the same thing with JD. When they bench JD, it was like, oh, we actually don't need you.
Yeah.
Like we're going to be able to pull this off no matter what because this
at
is
that time they had Saracen.
As a team. It's not a one-person sport.
Which I'm glad you got JD out there too, because the last thing about him I wanted to mention about a little bit before this, a little halfway through the season, he throws his big party, and again, Matt's in town. Him and Julie are still trying to work things out. They're at this big party at his house, and I think they're going and trying to find the bathroom or something, and they find this like shrine to JD. It's every trophy he's ever won, and they're kind of making fun of him, and he kind of comes in, and he's like, yeah, I'd show you my first diaper, but my dad had it like bronzed or something. Like he's not proud of it.
That was
either.
actually very early on because JD was still humble.
Yeah.
But by season 4, when East Dillion was introduced and all that, he was a complete asshole because they show up to a party and him and Matt get into a fight at one point.
Because he tries to throw Julie in the pool or something. It is,
yeah.
My time might be off, but it's the same party this happens.
Well, yeah.
But so the thing with JD, he's one of my least favorite characters too. They try between his dad being a dick and that scene, they try to make you feel bad for him, but I really don't. By like overall, I don't.
Fucking Peter Pan.
Yeah,
that was the only other role he was known for, as far as I know.
So after the whole game where they did bench Vince, he goes, "Dad, this whole time you've been telling me I can do what I want because he's not going to bench me." Well, guess what? They fucking benched me. And this is when he finds out that his dad's selling again. He's like, you know what? I can't really keep, listening to him. He goes back to coach. He grabs the quarterback jersey. He says, I'm going to earn it back. And he goes and he plays defense the whole next game, I believe. And to earn, well, at least in practice or something. But he gives him the quarterback jersey and he says, I'm going to earn this back. And then he goes and runs other drills and other things. And they end up getting, they go all the way to state. And the weird thing about state in this run is the whole game is a blur. Like the whole scene in this is montage of just score, back and forth.
This is the one time they did use just generic football footage. It
right.
seemed, we're talking about the series finale now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So
yeah, he does get back on track. It takes a little bit to get there, but he does.
So in that game, like I said, back and forth, little montage of it. Then you kind of like it's like a treadmill. And then it starts slowing down, and they show you a play and a play and a play, and then they show you the scoreboard. There's like 28 seconds left. They're down 41-46 or something to that effect, one touchdown. And he goes out for a Hail Mary, and this is one of the greatest. So Luke watched this whole show separate from me, but I actually went over to watch the finale with him because this finale is one of the greatest ones ever. At this point, while this ball's in the air, you also got to remember that they decide again, which to me this is a little bit of a plot hole, they're going to shut down East Dillion again, or at least merge the football programs the next year, and they kind of win. West Dillion wins the bidding war.
Even though I think they were already out of the playoffs.
They're out of the playoffs, but I think the argument is
they've had a longer
history, and they have the facilities, and they have the space.
I still didn't support it, but it was like now looking at it, especially because there's so much politics. There's so many politics that are involved with the public school system. I kind of get it now, but it doesn't stop them from like going all in.
Right,
they go balls deep on that last game.
Yeah, and so it comes out that they're calling it the super team because you're going to get all the good players that the Panthers have, and then you're going to have Vince and these other guys from the Lions are going to move over there.
Even Buddy is supporting it.
And Buddy wants Coach to go back to Dillion. And he said, I will never go back there. He said, listen, you won state a couple years ago. You're going to win state this year. With that super team, with all that talent, there's no way you don't win it. That's three rings in 6 years. Nobody's ever done that. And the coach
it
in
was
him,
a convincing argument.
The coach in him wants that. And at the same time, Miss Taylor gets an offer to be the dean. Talk about a glow up. A dean of a college in Philadelphia.
To guidance counselor, to principal, to dean of a university. And
in like 6 years.
They came to her. They came looking for her.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how often does that happen? And this is what, an Ivy League school, right? I'm pretty sure they said it was an
maybe
Ivy League.
I don't know if it's, but it's a very big.
It's a
university.
prestigious school.
Yes, yeah.
So how many times does a prestigious school go out to the middle of fucking Texas and find a public school principal?
I think her reputation of the whole like this school reopened and then look at these test scores, look at this.
Well, actually, now that I think about it, she went from being principal and then she moved over to East Dillion
to be a guidance counselor again. Yeah.
And then they came to her.
So that's probably
they're looking for a guidance counselor to become a dean.
Yeah.
Come on, something about the writing is a little off. That doesn't seem realistic.
That's one of the few.
Maybe I'm wrong.
That's one of the rare plot holes I think in the show.
I remember talking about that when or thinking about it when I was watching that. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Now, granted, that ended up being, I think, their biggest fight between the Taylors. Yeah. Because he was like, you kind of need to be here to support me and everything like that. This is very important to me. And she's like, I've been the coach's wife for like 20 something years. She's like, it's time. It's my time. And I have to admit, like, I was kind of on her side. I was like, let him finish the season, of course.
Well, sure. But
it worked out.
It's not that I'm not
the way it did, though.
I'm on her side for the reason of he just said he'll never go back to. At this point, it's just Dillion again. He's never going to go back to the
Once
Panthers.
He says he's not going to go back.
And then the Lions aren't going to be a thing. So you're not going to sit in Dillion, Texas, and not coach. So back to the Hail Mary, balls in the air. It's the backstory makes it great. Right. The ball's in the air, and you don't get to see what happens, which it normally would make you want to like throw a chair at your TV.
Right.
But what happens
there's still
is,
like 15 minutes left in the episode.
And you're
so
like, what?
They might say something.
So
knowing this show, how they rely on the dialogue, but they don't in this case.
The Hail Mary cuts to a practice of the next season, and it's caught by a Dillion Panther in a practice, and it's thrown by Vince Howard. And then he lines up for the next snap, and they zoom in on his finger, and he's wearing his championship ring.
Right.
And it's the most subtle and the most beautiful thing I've ever seen on television.
They do 2 hints, and that was the first one. The other one was their and this is kind of playing into the theme. During the theme, you see them putting up like the scoreboard for East Dillion because they were kind of mantling the school. Yeah, and
it said state champs on the thing.
They're dismantling the scoreboard, and there's a banner saying state champs. So you got his ring and that's all you need. And they don't ever actually vocalize it,
right? But yeah. And during the whole who's going to super team, Billy was hoping he could still coach. You see that he's there.
Yep.
During the media day leading into state, Tinker is being interviewed by somebody who goes, I'm going to be honest. Do you think you got a chance? And he literally says, you are such a jackass.
I think he gets up and walks away, doesn't he?
Yeah, he gets up and walks away. And then you cut to practice and he is working out. You're like, oh, Tinker's on the team. All right, good stuff.
And it's also kind of a callback to, because it's the last episode of the entire series. Yep. And the first episode of the series was starting with an interview day.
Yes.
Or media day. Sorry.
Right. So it gives you that whole full circle, and then you cut to Miss Taylor is in Philadelphia. She is at this university, and then you get Coach Taylor coaching an unnamed school. I think they're the Pioneers, because you see the scoreboard for a minute. They're wearing green, so he's now went from blue to red to green.
Yeah,
which just
moved his way across the
again subtle things. I love it. And he said, it's their first practice. So he says, all right, not bad for a first day.
He's giving the same speech.
He's giving the same general speech. Like every day you build on it, blah, blah, blah.
You know what I just realized, fellas? That is, we got a long way to go, gentlemen. A long way to go. You know what? I'm looking forward to it. Tonight you go home, you get your studies done, you get your rest, because you're going to be back here tomorrow at 6 a.m. It means no later than 5:45. Understood?
Yes, sir! And again, one of the most beautiful parts, he's so used to saying it, so he's like, all right, I'm going to get rest, be back here 6 a.m. tomorrow, and 6 a.m. means 5:55, blah, blah, blah.
He said that multiple times, too. Like, if you're going to be on time, you have to be 15 minutes early.
Yeah. And then he goes,
clear eyes, full hearts. And we'll deal with that later.
We'll
work on that.
And it's so beautiful because, like, this show ended perfectly, but I would do anything for a movie about one season with this new school.
Zach Gilford, who played Matt Saracen, also said he'd be down to come back and do a reuniting movie or something.
And he also admitted that Julie was a shitty girlfriend in the article, which is the reason I sent it to you, because we talked about it so much on the first part of this.
Yeah,
which I thought was awesome.
But yeah, so there's multiple people who are part of this cast who are willing to come back. They just want it. They don't want it to be like a random Christmas episode or something like that, where everyone's back in town, blah, blah, blah. They want it to mean something. At least that's what Zach Gilford said.
I mean, I don't need it at this point. It's been long enough. But if I got it, I would want Coach in Philadelphia, and you can cut back to Dillon. You can see what everybody's doing. But the football
it wouldn't make sense for him to go back at this point. But you can see where he is.
Exactly.
Maybe he's in touch with a few of them.
Maybe
coaches,
he's one.
That's realistic. Coaches stay in touch with their athletes years later.
Because you could. There's so many. You could be. Coach has won 2 state titles. He's trying to be the first coach ever to win 3 in a row in high school. Or maybe the team hasn't been great and he's playing for his job. Right. Like you can go anywhere in between. I would love to see it. It would have to involve the Philadelphia team, I think, at this point. But
especially this far down the road.
This far, yeah.
I think it's it ended in 2010 or 2011, so it's 9 to 10 years.
Yeah, so you'd have to do something like that. But no, the ending, it's the greatest ending to a show, in my opinion, I've ever seen. Like, just the subtlety of it. It tells you so many stories. And then one of the other closing scenes is Tim has had his eye on this land, like right outside of Dillon, for like the whole show.
He's out of jail.
I think it's where the bonfire is, the original Texas Forever speech. It's somewhere near that land, and it just shows
that or the Mud Bowl, which we didn't really talk about, but they had to make their own field at one point.
Yeah. So it shows him and Billy just building his house from scratch. So like you just kind of see Julie and Matt are living in Chicago. He's working in an art gallery. I think she's either going to school or she's dressed very nice. Maybe she has like a job at a bank or something. Like they're making a go of it together.
Tim talked so much about building that house. So there was even one point in the last 2 episodes or so where Tyra comes back and they're out there on the field and he's just talking about like this is his one dream. And he's been talking about it for a bit with Becky, with Tyra now, and then you finally see it there at the end. You're like, okay, he finally got. Because he's been through some shit.
It's funny when she comes back because her and Tim have a little bit of a flirtation, and Minnie goes, "You can't sleep with my sister. That's incest." And Billy and Tim are both like, "No, it's not. There's no bloodline." And she's like, "All right, but it's weird." And he's like, "Maybe, but it's not incest." It's a weird little back and forth at that point. But no, I love the ending to this show. Like I love everything about it, but to put that ending on it the way it is, it's fantastic.
And it ends with Coach Taylor gives that speech, and then they walk off the field, and the camera pans up because it's night. It was a nighttime practice
or early morning, depending.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true. It pans up to the stadium lights are on.
Yep.
And it literally ends with Friday Night Lights in a way.
Yeah.
And I thought and then it just goes to black, and no, it was a beautiful ending.
Yeah. So on our way out here, because 5 seasons is a big ask. I think we got to a lot of. If you haven't seen it, there's plenty of great story arcs that we didn't even get to touch on. Like there's plenty of things.
Yeah, there's probably a lot that we glossed over. But I think I think we got a good grasp.
I think we did good. Unless we wanted to make this 5 parts, I don't think we were going to get to everything. But on our way out here, favorite Friday Night Lights actors and other things. To me, it's Kyle Chandler. I called him Eric Chandler in the first one. You pointed out to me today.
Yeah,
Kyle
Chandler. I didn't notice it until I rewatched our episode, and I was like, Eric Chandler. Hold on, that's Eric Taylor
and Kyle Chandler.
Oh, wait, no. Eric Taylor, Kyle Chandler put together. Pretty neat, though.
Kyle Chandler in Wolf of Wall Street as the
oh, my God. I forgot about the FBI agent, right?
My favorite thing about it is, like, the whole time you watch him in those 5 seasons of the show, he never curses once.
But then in other roles.
In this show, he says, fuck you, fuck Jordan. This is the greatest fucking yacht I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a Martin Scorsese film.
Right.
I think that one of their goals is to say fuck as many times as possible.
Right, but just to see him – to see Coach Taylor say "fuckity fuck" is worth the price of that movie. I mean, that's a great movie. Please see it if you haven't. Wolf of Wall Street. But
I also liked him in Super 8.
Yes, he is in that too.
Yeah, I think it was kind of like Stranger Things before Stranger Things came around.
That's what we watched that not too long ago.
E.T.
And that's exactly what I said. I'm like, I'm getting Stranger Things vibes on. So yeah, if you like Coach Taylor, if you like what he's about, that's 2 good movies worth going to see.
Yeah, definitely.
Another random one. He doesn't like jump off the screen, but Matt Saracen is in the second Purge movie randomly.
Yep.
Which is a really just
anarchy.
Odd, really odd thing. Those are the 2 biggest ones. And then of course, I think you mentioned this, but I'll steal from you. You can elaborate. Tim Riggins as Gambit in Wolverine Origins.
No, I didn't mention him, but yeah, I'd say Tim Riggins as Gambit.
Which there was a point where he was going to get
Survivor. I think he was in Lone Survivor.
Sure.
He was one of the 4 in that squad. That was a big movie.
But as far as Gambit goes, like I thought he played Gambit great, and there was a point he was supposed to get a standalone movie, and it never came. I would have liked it. I think he's a little too old for the role now. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but I would have liked it.
I haven't seen the movie, but I heard he starred in John Carter, and I heard the movie fucking bombed, like $200 million loss or something like that.
You know how in the first one I thought he was in John Wick. I was probably thinking John Carter.
Oh,
so I'm not
really?
totally off base.
Yeah,
I knew there was a John in there.
That's true.
That's okay. Because I'm like, why was I so off base there? No, okay, now I get it. I was thinking of that because I haven't seen either of them.
Oh, dude,
so,
we got to do John Wick at some point.
Okay, I don't know if it fits a sports show, but I'll watch
no.
the
I mean,
movie.
we don't need to do a podcast. We just need to watch it
for sure.
But I never saw John Carter. I just heard it did horrible. But
yeah.
So you got Taylor Kitsch, you got Kyle Chandler. Who else did we say?
Matt Saracen. I don't know his actors.
Zach Gilford.
Yeah. Those are the main ones. There's probably more. I'm not.
Actually, number one in my opinion would be Michael B. Jordan.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
Creed. I mean,
Creed
Chronicle.
2,
You mentioned already.
Fruitvale Station.
Mm-hmm. So, like I said, he's probably
Black
got the
Panther.
Black Panther, of course.
Mercy. By the way, check out Mercy. It's fucking amazing.
The one movie superhero movie that the villain outshines the hero. I think Black Panther.
Too.
I think he's fucking.
Nothing against Chadwick Boseman.
No.
It's just that I think a lot of people can relate with where Michael B. Jordan's character was coming from in that movie.
Is this your king?
Yeah.
Is this your king? No, that is a great. Like, he's clearly got the best body of work. I think his was obvious. That's why I didn't think to mention him.
I do have to mention Jesse Plemons.
That's where I was about to go.
Yeah.
He was in Black Mirror. He's the bully in Like Mike when he's a little kid. For those that didn't know.
Oh, really?
The little Bow Wow movie. Yeah, he's the kid that throws the shoes up on the pole and shit, and burns Stuart Little's mom's picture. He's a dick in that movie.
Breaking Bad. Also, in case you haven't seen Breaking Bad, Jesse Plemons is one of the main characters in the later seasons. He actually enslaves Jesse at one point. He's a bad dude. He's psychotic.
Jesse Plemons is who?
Jesse Plemons. I don't remember the character.
No. Who's he playing in Friday Night Lights?
Jesse Plemons plays Landry.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
But then
everything I just said about Like Mike is about Landry. I wanted to make sure I said that right.
So we're talking about Landry.
Yeah.
So Landry enslaves this other character named Jesse Pinkman. Everyone knows Jesse Pinkman, and so he's kind of an evil character in Breaking Bad.
He plays some creepy roles in Black Mirror.
Mirror, yeah, that was a really weird role, but he's that shows like he's got a good range. He can play someone who's as innocent as Landry and lighthearted and all that, and then be just really off, to the point where it's creepy stuff in Black Mirror and Breaking Bad. Both of those are probably his darkest roles.
For sure.
I don't know her name, but the woman who played Jess, Vince Howard's girl in the show, she was in Gridiron Gang, another football movie, which we're going to cover at some point.
And Miss Taylor is in a lot of American Horror Story seasons.
Yeah.
That's seasons. That's another one. That's the first thing I saw her in out of this was Murder House, the first season, and she's kind of a slut in that. And I'm like, Mrs. Taylor, what are you doing? But yeah, so I think that'd be most of them. But,
I think that covers all of them. In case you like the show Ranch, Amy Teagarden is in it for a couple episodes.
Who plays?
She plays Beer Bong's girlfriend.
In Friday Night Lights.
Oh, sorry. Amy Teagarden is Julie Taylor.
Got it.
But yeah, I think that's about it.
I don't know how long this went, but it took.
I think it was longer than the first one.
It might be,
and less seasons.
I guess we'll see. Thank God for editing. I guess I'll see what I can do here. But no, guys, that is Friday Night Lights. This was a big ask to do 5 seasons. Moving forward, we're gonna do a bunch of movies, which will make it easier to condense 2 hours worth of stuff as opposed to 5 seasons. We talked about it between here and first episode and now. The first movie we're gonna review is Disney's Invincible, starring Mark Wahlberg. Probably in a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks, we'll get that one out there. But thank you guys for watching and listening to the Phil Talk Sports podcast. If you haven't seen the show, I don't think you would have sat through all this. So definitely check it out if you haven't. But until next time, clear eyes, full hearts.
Can't lose.
Cheers. See you guys next time.